Joining us on a special Tuesday appearance, GOP political strategist and co-founder of MustReadTexas.com. It's Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Chad. I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing well. Appreciate you coming on today. Hope you had a good weekend. I saw that you were going to a few sporting events in the Pittsburgh area, so it looked like you had a good time.
Yeah, I always say we visit family in Pittsburgh, and when we do that, we don't just visit blood relatives, but we visit Heinz Field and Consol Energy Center to watch the Steelers and the Penguins. So it was a good weekend.
Very cool. Glad you had a good one. Let's start off talking about this Texas elector who has decided not to vote for Donald Trump. He's trying to unify people around John Kasich, sounds like. I mean, it's not going to happen. You're not going to have a wide swath of Republicans go and try to get John Kasich. But overall, how do you feel about the electors? I know in Texas, you don't. If you're an elector, you don't have to vote for who gets the popular vote. Do you like how that process plays out, or do you wish that these electors had to vote for the person who won the state in the presidential election?
Yeah, and this is an interesting story. I'm not sure it matters much because keep in mind, if this was a 271, 267 electoral college breakdown, it would matter.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump got 306 electoral votes in terms of election night. So we are where we are. And look, this individual is the second elector from Texas. The first one said he wasn't going to vote for Trump but resigned, which honestly to me is the much more responsible choice. That allows the Texas electors to replace that person. I believe that happens December 19th. And so ultimately they're going to choose someone that will vote for the nominees so that electoral vote does not go to someone else and does not get delivered to the person that won the electoral votes fairly and squarely in Texas on November 8th. So as it relates to this individual, it's funny. I had heard some chatter, I want to say in early October, might have been mid-October, that there were a few electors around the country that were interested in kicking it over to John Kasich if a certain type of scenario unfolded. So I'm not so shocked to hear this. I think it's an irresponsible move from this particular elector. You have to understand what the Electoral College is. Both parties sign up electors from all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Maybe not District of Columbia, but certainly all 50 states that have electoral votes. And those individuals only play a role if their candidate, if their party, wins their state's electoral votes. So Hillary Clinton's electors in Texas have no role. And Donald Trump's electors in, let's say Vermont have no role, right? But Donald Trump's electors in Texas and in all the other states he won do have a role. And at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that at least 270 of them vote for him when the Electoral College vote occurs in January. And so that is clearly going to happen. You'd have to have, 37 of them defect. Right now you have one that I'm aware of. It's not going to happen. It's never happened. Generally we only have one or maybe two electors that become, quote, faithless electors. And to your question, I would support the legislature creating a faithless elector punishment in state law. At the end of the day, you have to understand what your role is. If you're not prepared to use your electoral vote to cast on behalf of the nominee, you should not run for elector from your state. It's not about your opinion. It's about what the voters did, and the voters of Texas clearly voted for Donald Trump on November 8th, whether you like it or not. And if you're an elector, you need to carry out your duties. That's my view.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Matt, let's talk a little bit more about Donald Trump and the transition. Donald Trump is apparently, according to all news reports, has expanded the options for Secretary of State. Does this kind of show in your mind that Mitt Romney is now moving to the back burner because the field has expanded, or is this maybe Donald Trump playing games with the media?
I don't think he's playing games, although if he is, he's building interest, and he likes doing that. He likes, building up interest and then serving that demand either on Twitter or, on television or wherever. So, he is a master showman as it relates to television. It could be that he's trying to build this towards television. I don't know. At the end of the day, I think he realizes Secretary of State is his single most important appointment, perhaps tied with defense. He hit a home run with General Mattis, who he's going to have with him tonight in Fayetteville at Fort Bragg, which is the the nerve center, effectively, the home of these special forces. So he needs a wow pick for Secretary of State, someone that is going to be able to go into foreign capitals and reflect the views of the President of the United States, but do it in a way that gives calm and reassurance to our allies, and helps us work through 6 or 8 very, very serious foreign policy challenges. Look across the world. You have North Korea, the North Korean threat building. It's probably the single biggest foreign policy challenge we face, and perhaps security threat that we face. You have Iran, you have Syria, you have Libya, you have the Middle East peace process, you have the EU falling apart. I mean, there are so many significant foreign policy challenges right now. We have got to have a great Secretary of State. I think he understands that, and so I look at it in terms of him broadening out his list. I look at that as a positive. Honestly, because he's got some good and very qualified people on that list. Now, if you ask me who's my preference is probably Mitt Romney, but a very, very close second is John Bolton. I think Ambassador Bolton would be an absolute home run. He's got all the right enemies. He was a great United States ambassador to the United Nations for 1 year when the Senate wouldn't confirm him. He understands foreign policy, national security better than almost anyone that I've ever seen. And I know that sounds like hyperbole, but I saw him give a speech at Red State Gathering in August in Denver. That was the single most impressive national security speech I have ever seen. And so I think there's a number of people that are in the mix. I think General Petraeus is a solid choice. I think he remains possible. I think Bolton is in the mix. Sounds like Trump is interviewing Rex Tillerson, the CEO of Exxon, on Thursday. John Huntsman, former U.S. ambassador to China, former governor of Utah, is probably in the mix. Look, he's got a number of good choices. Bob Corker, the Senate Foreign Relations Chairman. Now, I've got different opinions about all these people. I think any of them are adequate. My sense is, yes, Romney is kind of losing steam a little bit, and that Petraeus did well in the Sunday shows this weekend, but there remain some issues that related to his conviction over his handling of classified information. So my sense is that Trump wants to go in another direction, and he just wants to see what his realistic options are at this point. And again, he knows how important this particular role is. He's got to have someone who can do the job, who can get confirmed, who's credible, and who is entirely aligned with President-elect Trump's foreign policy views.
And I know we talked about this a little bit last week, but is this also the Trump team looking at who can get confirmed because of Rand Paul? And I know we talked about this a little bit last week. Is that maybe another reason for expanding the field to see, okay, Bolton may be a top choice, but he's dicey of getting confirmed because of Rand Paul, who's already come out and said, I'm not going to vote for a John Bolton.
Yeah, and understand the math here, and I know you understand this, but your audience may not have these numbers off the top of their head. It used to be you had to get 60 votes to get confirmed into the cabinet by the United States Senate. Harry Reid short-sightedly and irresponsibly changed that rule by using the nuclear option. You now need 50 votes from the vice president or 51 votes without the vice president. We have 52 Republican United States senators in the new Congress. So, a Republican nominee, if he's opposed by all Democrats, can only lose 2 Republican votes, effectively. So if Rand Paul is already saying he's not going to support John Bolton, that means, if Susan Collins or Jeff Flake or someone else out there banded together with him, you wouldn't have enough votes to confirm that person. And so, yes, Rand Paul shouldn't maybe matter as much as he does, but on these nominees, the margin is so narrow that he does matter. And so my guess is yes, because Rand Paul has said Bolton is out. Unless they know they have 51 other Republican senators that are certainly going to be for Bolton, they're probably not going to nominate him. And that's why I think they've expanded their list of choices. They would love to get someone like Bolton, but someone perhaps that Rand Paul would be willing to accept. And that's where maybe another person comes into the mix. That Romney may end up being the ultimate choice because these new choices may not end up being better than he was all along.
Yeah. Visiting with Matt Mackowiak. Matt, let's take a quick look just at the upcoming legislative session. What are some of the dividing lines that you're seeing already before the session even starts? And what do you think the top priorities for this legislature will be, once all is said and done?
I think three things basically. I think 2 things are going to consume a lot of time. The budget is going to be a big fight. Looks like we only have $99 billion or so to spend for the biennium. So that's going to be a big discussion. The House and Senate are going to have different views on what needs to be cut, how much they want to spend, what's done in the supplemental. The budget is, I think, going to be a big fight, a bigger fight than it traditionally is. Second, I think you're going to see everyone unite behind sanctuary cities legislation. I think Governor Abbott is going to make an emergency item. That's my prediction. Lieutenant Governor Patrick is entirely behind it. The Senate will pass sanctuary cities legislation early, and my hope is the House will find it in their priority list as well and pass it also. The third issue is I would just call it education. And to me, I'm finishing my Austin American Statesman column this morning on this issue for next Monday, and it is education reform, school choice, and school finance reform, because you have Democrats that want to see more money put into school to public education through the ruling by the Texas Supreme Court on the school finance system that we have. But you also have a lot of conservatives, particularly in the Texas Senate, that want to see school choice legislation go forward, perhaps in the form of educational savings accounts, along the lines of what Nevada has done and which was upheld by their state Supreme Court. So my guess is there's a way on that to maybe trade educational savings accounts for an increase in public education funding to do that. That is what I think the end game ultimately will be. But I am expecting a pretty ugly legislative session with the House and Senate are pretty far apart. Governor Abbott is going to have to referee between the two of them. There's going to be a lot of pressure put on the House on a lot of issues, perhaps things like the bathroom bill and Second Amendment legislation and other things. So I'm expecting a wild and woolly session and may even have at least one special session, but it all remains to be seen.
Matt, what can people find on mustreadtexas.com, and how can they sign up for your newsletter?
Yeah, we're a little delayed this morning for reasons that were outside my control, but we will have our morning email going out shortly. We post the top news, opinion, and blog items from around the state in one place at mustreadtexas.com, and 4,000 Texans subscribe to our free daily email, which you can subscribe at mustreadtexas.com.
All right. As always, Matt, appreciate your time, and we'll visit with you next week.
Thanks, Chad. Have a great week. Take care.
You too. That's Matt Mackowiak. Follow him on Twitter as well, at Matt Mackowiak.